So, all right,
Uh,
we'll start. Hi, everyone. Welcome back to the Unleashing Potentials podcast. Joining me today is Kari Hohne.
yes.
Right?
Yes.
Welcome to the podcast, Kari. I'm so happy to have you on.
Thank you. It's very nice to meet you, and I appreciate you having me on your show.
Yeah, you're welcome. So, Kari, why don't you tell us a bit about you, who you are, and what you do?
Well, I'm best known as a dream analyst. I'm an author of like 8 books, and it covers a couple books on dreams. I've done a lot of archetype studies. I've translated ancient texts. I think my best-selling book is really the translation of the I Ching. So, because I work a lot with Taoist ideas, and ancient Chinese philosophy, and I have a translation of the Tao Te Ching and the I Ching, and I just see it as a really great philosophy for cultivating joy.
Mhm.
And so I work with people around the world. I mean, the internet's been great because it allowed me to take my work in terms of interpreting dreams for others, to be able to work with people all over the world and see similar patterns, regardless of culture.
Mhm.
And then I created my website, Cafe au Sol, that has kind of the Eastern archetypes in like an online I Ching reading somebody can pull, or the Western archetypes in tarot. And the reason that I brought the oracles into the site is because most people don't remember their dreams. But what I have found when working with clients is if they bring me an oracle reading and a dream, they seems to be giving the client the same message.
Mhm.
So I feel like I created a space for people to just kind of have a private conversation with themselves. You
Mhm.
know, I mean, I work with people one on one, but I kind of see my website as the light left on out there in the dark when people kind of want to just, explore their potential, check in with why, they're authentic. I have a channel on YouTube called Nature is a Guru, and I just released a video about the joy of being you, and it like kind of explores from a nature's perspective why we were all designed to be unique, even among our siblings. So that's another big area that I pursue is looking at nature, kind of a little bit scientific. I love physics and all that, but looking at nature to really understand the human journey
Mhm.
from a more natural perspective.
Mhm.
So
Wow.
that's me.
Yeah, that is so cool. I love everything that you do. I literally was talking to a friend about dream today, and it's something I'm really into. So I'm so excited for us to dive just a little deeper.
Okay.
Um, Everyone knows what dreams are, but you are a dream analyst. What are your approach? How do you analyze dreams? An example you can give me is working with a client.
Well, dream that we dream of what we're not recognizing in daily life. We
Mhm.
dream of the parts of ourselves that we may have repressed because it didn't fit in with society wanting us all to be the same. So first of all, our dreams are kind of exploring, you can call it the shadow, or, like something in daily life might get our goat. I don't know if you know what I mean by that, but push
Yeah.
our buttons or
Yeah.
get it, that, and we're sort of focused on it because there's something about that situation that if we were to really kind of analyze our feelings and responses, we might discover we're protecting something. And why are we protecting that? And what can exploring it, how can it open us up? And that's kind of what's happening with dreams. It's, there's parts of the mind. It's not that we're unconscious when we dream,
Mhm.
but aspects of consciousness, like the sense of ego, logic, that, we're much more in a visually driven part of the brain. We could call it the right brain. And we're, everything's a reflection of us. So even like the environment, if it's an icy landscape or it's a dream about water, which might be emotions, everything's kind of reflecting the the condition of our inner world. And there's symbols that, um, they can like this is the part I love, that it shows just how creative everybody is, because
Mhm.
their own mind will come up with a very complicated, which they might dismiss as kind of nonsense, but it'll come up with it if you really look at how it's brought two symbols together and something kind of kooky. If you really look at it, there's often clues to, transcend some sort of difficulty.
Mhm. Mhm.
So so it's, I think people dismiss their dreams because they don't understand that it's in a more visual language. I associate it with poetry, the way that a poet will use sort of a metaphor to really convey a feeling in more depth. It's not literal, so I think the fact that dreams are using more of a metaphorical expression, and the
Mhm.
fact that everything, even the other people that show up in our dreams, are really embodying qualities that we're exploring.
Mhm.
So, one of my books, The Mind's Mirror, is the idea that everything in a dream, it is a reflection of us. And, it's hard to remember our dreams, because the part of the mind that functions while we're awake is the same mind that repressed whatever it is we're exploring in our dreams.
Mm.
So, like I split it between the left and the right brain. It's like we're more in the right brain when we're dreaming, but then we awaken into the left brain.
Mhm.
So it's kind of difficult to remember our dreams. And I always tell people, just remember one image before you wake up, like there was a balloon, and just say the word while you're waking up, and don't jump in and analyze it, because that puts you back into that other side of the mind. Write the word down, and then, just gently allow the rest of the information to come forward, and kind of capture it before you start analyzing it.
Yeah.
So I don't, yeah, so that's my approach to dream work.
Mhm. Yeah, I love that. I have a dream journal, and I started using it 2 years ago. Um, I think it's important to have dream journals and to kind of keep track of what we're dreaming about. But what are some dreams, in your opinions, that we should never ignore? And what are some dreams that we need to ignore and not attach ourselves and reality to it too much?
Well, I definitely love nightmares. Like if somebody's sending me a dream
Yeah.
for interpretation, I'll jump right on that one, because,
Mhm.
I mean, you can kind of see dreams as wanting to stimulate some kind of emotional response.
Mhm.
And the more painful, upsetting, emotionally, whatever, the dream is, the
Mhm.
more relevant it is. So, like, for example, when I'm doing dream work with somebody, there'll be a period where they'll remember their dreams. I mean, I work with people that, will remember like a book. Like it's so, but what I notice is, and even when I'm doing really comprehensive dream work with somebody where they're writing their dreams down every day, you see it's a repetitive message. So you don't need to remember all of the dreams, Generally there'll be, some repetition there.
Mhm.
Um, but then there'll be periods where they don't remember their dreams, because they're kind of more in like an assimilation phase. Like what I see is what they're dreaming when they allow it to come into waking consciousness and are working with it. It takes about 2 or 3 weeks before they get the shift in their attitude, or whatever the dream is working through, seems to affect them. When someone has a nightmare, there's the
Mhm.
sense that even though we may have like repressed some aspect of ourselves. I always use this one dream, the stalker dream, for very successful women. I talk about that a lot. She'll be very successful, and for some, have, the means to support herself. But for some reason, there's somebody trying to break into the house, the stalker dream. And these nightmares are really kind of the quaking of the psyche. So that's why I say they're good, because it's the when somebody starts, and I call it shadow work, because that stalker is a side of us, and we need to understand who is it that isn't allowed in our house, like which would be ourself, like what part of us have we, left out in the cold. And what I notice is when people start working, doing the shadow work, or releasing that hold,
Mhm.
that they get a lot more energy, but for, a lot of times that particular dream, I see it a lot with the older daughter child who maybe the parents split up and
Mhm.
she had to be like the mother to the siblings because then the mother was being more like a sister, or there was some weird energy between the mom and this older sibling to where she was sort of told she was a black sheep, even though she had these really pronounced caregiving skills, and even though she's like made an amazing thing out of her life, that black sheep that she's denying, that part of her that, is misunderstood. And that's who's stalking her. Does
Yeah.
that make sense?
Yes, it
So,
does.
so
It
it's like,
does. Yeah.
yeah, so everybody is gonna, have different kinds of nightmares, but I think that the more frightening the dream, the more important it is to really get at the root of it, because
Mhm.
there's some empowerment that's being trapped, usurped. A lot of energy is going towards protecting it. And then what's happening in daily life is, everybody's pushing their buttons, like, so everybody's the enemy.
Mhm.
There's
Yeah.
a saying in Taoism, dragging the adversary about when there is no adversary will cost you your inner treasure.
Ooh, I love
So it's
that.
like it's not, it's not them. It's always you, you
Mhm.
know. And and that the nightmare shadow work tends to go hand in hand with with the sense that everybody is just trying to trip me up.
Yeah.
Well, maybe we should look at that.
Mm. Yeah, yeah. Thank you so much for explaining it that way. Nightmares are terrifying. I've had nightmares for a very long time until recently. And for some people, obviously, we experience fear differently and dreams differently. And I used to get night sweats, and I know I'm not alone. And it's terrifying. Getting up, screaming, and shaky, and not going back to sleep. Um, is that the psyche trying to say it's time? It's time to move on,
Well,
or to experience more, to wake up.
yeah, I mean, when you think of the word terrifying, like you were saying earlier, it
Mhm.
means something different to everybody,
Mm,
and kind of, uh, I've worked with people that have, you know, there was some part of their upbringing that made them feel dirty,
mm,
and so terrifying to them could be bugs coming out of the wash, when they're in the bathtub, coming out of the drain, or, like some people, it could be like having it out with the devil, their idea of the devil or whatever. But always it is going to it's the hero's journey of initiation.
mhm,
The hero slays the dragon, and by slaying the dragon, he unleashes his own vitality and power, and becomes the king, or
mhm,
so um it I've heard a lot of different, nightmares. I would never, I'm just one that doesn't believe that there's ever anything bad. In fact, one of my books is called Nothing Bad Happens in Life.
mm,
There's life is chaotic. I mean, nature's chaotic. It's got all these organisms that are organizing the chaos into systems and order, and sometimes the order traps us, and then
mm,
sometimes the rug has to be pulled out from under us so that we can keep reaching higher into our potential. you
mm,
know i I love the idea that with down the if you looked at everything that is on this earth right now over billions of years, it's nature's best example
mm,
of what it can create at this given moment.
mm,
And with us too, like we're a variation of our line. We're not going to be like our parents, we're not going to be like our siblings, but we're a variation, and nature doesn't even know what we're capable of, but it's created us with something that's unique and special.
mhm,
And these challenges, or these things that feel like they're bad, are actually breaking us open. They're challenging us to reach deeper within ourselves.
mhm.
To Does that make sense? Like the
Oh, it
idea
does,
that,
yeah.
yeah,
Yeah,
it,
and it hurts to be broken. I
yeah,
can attest to that. It does.
uh,
Um, Speaking of broken, let's talk a little bit about shadow work. And maybe someone's listening or watching this, they've never heard of the term shadow work. Can you tell us what it is? I know what it is, but can you tell us what it is?
sure.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so these ideas kind of trace back. I mean, it was Sigmund Freud would have been the person that really kind of started pioneering the idea that we have an unconscious that, or, part of our mind that's not available to us, and that it is a reservoir for, energies and powers that can become physical symptoms that can debilitate us, and then it was his student, Carl Jung, who really kind of worked more with the idea of archetypes. And
Mm,
archetypes are sort of, the patterns within, dreams, let's say themes, or, you have the feminine and masculine psyche. The idea of the shadow would embody anything that would be in the dark. So if,
mm,
the enlightened psyche, the what's the word, individuated psyche would be in complete light. There would be nothing hiding. And so we call it the shadow, which would be, if there's even like, when you think of an archetype like the anima and animus, which would be the male and female as they show up in, men and women's dreams, I see them shapeshift. So sometimes like a very mean woman, which might be like in some level the archetype of the higher self, but it's taken the form of the shadow because she's trying to, chase us or kill us or whatever.
yeah.
So the shadow is really like the face of the other, the face of that's not me. And that's not me is evil and bad. And I need to keep pushing it away. But
Mhm,
the idea that no, if you're fixated on something that is constantly aggravating you, by approaching it and really getting at the root of what's this about? What face has it taken? What, character is it playing in your dreams?
mhm,
Why would it appear like the adversary?
mhm,
And it's really you. And by, knowing that it's you, let it teach you what you may not know about yourself that could be much more enriching for you if you were to be completely, authentically, fearlessly yourself.
mhm,
Does
mhm.
that make sense?
Yeah, it does. It does. Yeah. Um, I know for me, I've been so terrified to work with my inner child. And I know I'm not alone in this, especially for those who've had very traumatic childhoods.
Mhm.
And in my case, I didn't feel protected. And I feel like my inner child, she's still very angry. So I'm still having a hard time going to her because I'm not ready.
Mhm. Well,
Yeah.
number one, if the if the child is hurting in any way, whether anger is just a form of pain, right?
Mhm,
You would think that it would require just the opposite, going to it to comfort it, which kind of brings up another idea that we are not like our parents. Our parents did not come with instructions.
mhm,
Well, there's a lot of us that weren't protected as children, and some of us just like picked ourselves up and, figured it out, and learned that life is like a roller coaster. Ha ha ha. Sometimes it goes up, whoa, and sometimes it goes down,
yeah.
and don't judge life or don't judge the parents or, but then there's some children that think that life should have been a specific way, when in reality, your path may have been designed specifically to not have that coddling.
Mm,
So, number one, I think, not being afraid to approach an angry inner child or a hurting inner
mm,
child, but really like making it a priority to give it what it needs. And
mhm,
two, I don't think the idea that our parents owed us anything, it,
mhm,
it serves us because, like I was saying before, we're a unique variation of our line, but there is a part of our mother and there's a part of our father that will reside inside of us. And as long as we hold that part of, if we're holding our parents in contempt, we're holding a part of ourselves in contempt.
mhm,
So it does us no good to blame them. So like if you put, we call it forgiveness or compassion, or, put things in perspective and forgive, release, let it go. Okay, now it's no longer our parents' fault that we're suffering. Then what are we left with? How can I then, you know, the anger that you're calling, something, whatever happened in your childhood, might actually be your passion.
mm,
It may be the palette that you paint from with such glorious colors
Mhm.
because you have that to draw on.
Mhm.
You know
Mhm.
what I mean?
Yeah.
So I don't think we should ever be afraid of, I look at it like I wrote a blog at one point about, compassion as a path of enlightenment.
Mhm.
And when use the word compassion, I don't mean pity,
Yeah.
but I think compassion is probably, and now I sound like the Buddha, but there's a lot to be said for that idea that compassion is really re settling into the idea that we're not the host here, we're the guest.
Mhm.
And who's the host, we don't really know. And when we try to define it, that's when we start having wars and, hating each other or whatever.
Mhm.
But we don't know what's going on. We'll never know what's going on. And Bill, how long have we been here? We've been here seconds on the time scale of nature.
Mhm.
And we think we've got it all figured out and we don't. And there's a lot that's going on that we could call bad, but it's really just a transformation, and transformation is often painful. And, it's all how we see it.
Mhm.
So I think that the most important thing is to let go of the judgments, of the things that would make us
Mhm.
um, fa- negative, right?
Yeah.
Um, and and recognize that there's something really great on the horizon.
Mhm.
Always, it's a light that's calling us, and to be in our little boat and set our sails and go with the direction of the wind, even if it wasn't the direction that we set out. Just go, follow that light, go to the end, see what's there, and stay focused on what's possible,
Mhm.
rather than getting lost in our judgments and opinions. And and this is a very challenging time, I think, with so much media food.
Yeah.
you know it's like everywhere all the time, and we have to make a conscious effort to recognize that it's an industry. Somebody's making money,
Mhm.
off of our fear, off of our negativity, off of our bickering, and we don't have to live in that.
Mhm. Yeah, yeah, I agree. I personally don't watch the news. I'm not against anyone who watches it. It's a personal choice. You're right. Lots of fear.
Mhm.
Yes, there are some good stuff in the news, but it's more bad for some reason. It just doesn't
Because
uplift
that
my
it
energy.
it's more marketable, the bad.
Mhm.
Like that, if there was a website about, oh, here's some really good things that happened today, and this other one that's like, oh, the world's gonna end. Everybody's gonna go to the world's gonna end because it
Yeah.
sells, you know.
Yeah.
It catches our attention because, which is another thing, taking us back to dreams. You
Mhm.
know, dreams, like, really, ego is nothing more than the face of our defense mechanisms. Like, we're here just like a plant. Nobody can tell me a plant is not conscious in some sense. It
Mhm.
has a survival instinct. It's trying to reach the sun so that it can eat, and we are constantly, our instinctual drive is to survive. And, and a lot of what we're dreaming about is overcoming the barriers and limitations because of this over overdone sense of wanting to survive, that we have to battle through so that we can, like, grow a little bit more.
Mhm.
Um,
Mhm.
so it's like it makes sense that these companies would peddle fear, you know?
Mhm. Yeah, absolutely. You're also an artist. What types of arts do you do? Music, canvas? Tell us,
Yeah.
an artist.
Well, okay, so um I'm a musician. I have two albums that are out under Get Tribal. That's my name
Mhm.
for my music.
Mhm.
Um,
Mhm.
but I what like I think that part of the reason I got involved in dreams, I was
Mhm.
just kind of born knowing what they meant. I don't know if that, you know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
for some reason I just had I think because I was a poet, um, I, it, and poetry is such a beautiful art because it's a way of conveying an idea without being literal. You know what I mean?
Mhm.
And the better you can get it, the metaphor, the more you can sort of like write something that resonates.
Yeah.
And that's what I think I was saying earlier that dreams are doing as well. So I think because I was a poet as a little kid too, you know, so I guess I would be more of like an artist of words and the music that I did is like chakra awakening. I use a lot of percussion
Mhm.
and rhythm. My first album, God of Drum, goes from American Native American music from for the root chakra up through like Celtic, it hits like music from all over the world to go
Mhm.
through the chakra centers.
Mhm.
And then in my second album, I was, kind of merging like, reggae with like, Vedic chants or, like just mixing it all up. And I think overall as an artist, I'm always just trying to tear down the boundaries. I like to just keep showing how we're all saying the same thing or it's all one thing. So I'm not really I don't draw or paint. Um so uh so it's I don't know. I'm kind of an artist of whatever the muse is dishing up. Are you an artist?
I guess I am. I paint, I draw, and I write poetry.
Hmm.
I sing for fun, nothing fancy. I just do things that heals me. And
Yeah.
I used to have so much fear around letting people hear when I'm singing, and then my paint, whether they judge it or not. But I have let go completely, and it's so beautiful.
Yeah, because it's really the process, not the product, right? Like
Yeah.
the process of like letting your work lead
Mhm.
you, you
Mhm.
know. And when in the 90s, I guess, when I really started to work with dreams, I was very fascinated with the imagination and the
Mhm.
power, that it holds. And I actually taught art programs in schools in East LA or I would like do these art programs with the elderly at different senior centers or uh around Los Angeles. I was always like seeing how giving people the opportunity, like for example, working with at-risk kids, they were at risk of joining gangs. When I put them in this art program, and we would cover all, drawing, poetry, three-line poems, but it was kind of giving them a canvas to say, hey, this is your life, reach inside, start tapping your inner vision. And the difference between um peer pressure
Mhm.
and inner vision is huge. Like, if art is not in education, kids don't ever get a chance to like really think independently, think uniquely, be led by their own drummer. And
Mhm.
it was so profound the way these kids would, you know, transform. And these were like 13, 14-year olds, very, very young. And then, and same with the elderly, they were like, I don't know, their lives maybe had reached a point where there wasn't a lot to be excited about, and bringing them into drama and poetry writing. And, it just, there's so much to art that is, engaging the imagination and possibilities and self esteem. So
Yeah.
it's kind of, to me, art is a therapy. So it
Oh,
makes
it is.
sense that, yeah, it would make sense that you say, you heal. And so to feel that the product, what it is I'm creating, who cares?
Mhm.
I wrote stuff. I remember I always tell this story. So but I remember when I was first writing about dreams,
Mhm.
talking to a publisher in New York, and this is again probably in the 90s, and they're like, what? Oh, you're from California. Like they honestly thought that writing about dreams was like woo woo. And
Mhm.
then today, I love it that people are much more open to the idea that, which is where I am today. That there, I used to always talk about the two minds, the waking mind, the dreamy mind. It's one mind. I'm now about the 24-hour mind, like
Mhm.
there, so the the more that I don't know. So if I would have stopped writing because people, and it was funny because when I didn't find a lot of success early through books with the dream stuff. I created an app I had a website and my developer's like, well, they have these new things called apps, and let's just put your dream dictionary in an app so that it brings people to your website. And it went to like the top 10 of iTunes, like because it was like people wanted to know what their dreams were about.
Yeah, I think every day we're waking up,
Yeah,
and every day we're just helping others heal. And through arts and through the things that you do, it's just powerful and necessary, I think.
yeah.
Mhm. So I love how you combine Eastern and Western together. You bring them together. Tell me more of why you do shamanic music and what does it do for you?
Well, okay, so that the idea that I like percussion, so my music is really based on percussion, and I use a lot of very ethnic, raw, um, drums that are, that would be like, uh, you know, ethnic, I guess you call it, or old,
Yeah.
or very, very. Excuse me, I just had something in my throat, very
Mhm.
raw. But I mix it then with I was mixing it with hip hop beats, and
Mm.
so I was just kind of mixing it up. But I feel like percussion is like, you know, it has like the ability uh to stir us in a way. Like you can't hear music with especially, like if you're sitting there listening to violins, you're going to feel one way. You start adding drums to it, and you just can't stand still. So I guess there's like, I wouldn't use the word hypnotic because it's not really that, but it's calling us to dance.
Mm.
So there's just definitely something about the drum, and drums are prevalent in everything that I do musically. Drums are used in shamanic work for like, they drum so that you can get into more like when you think of what's the shaman's awareness, they're looking for second sight, they call it, or they're not like seeing the world like everybody else. They're more in touch with the archetypal realm, the realm of symbols and interpretations of things that are a little more magical. So they go together. So if you've ever done any shaman drumming, it's more of like a transcendent, the same way somebody would like listen to binaural beats or something to try to have like an epiphany or
Mm.
so I'm bringing shamanic, I've worked with shamans in Africa, in South America, different places around the world, but it's always the same process, that's always leading to kind of transcendence. So
Yeah.
I try, so I feel like, in fact, my music has always been in like the new age category,
Mm.
because it's instead of world, even though it's like world percussions and stuff, it's new age, I guess, because there's so much meditative. Like the one album, Got a Drum, if you listen to it from track 1 to 10, it's a complete chakra awakening all the way to the crown, and if you the Radio God one is great for like dance, movement, yoga, because it's like it's kind of got the beats and all that.
Yeah, that's
So,
really cool. Yeah.
uh,
Yeah. I listen to all types of musics, and
yeah.
I think drums have my heart. And when I hear
Mhm.
drums, it touches something that I cannot physically touch, like in my soul.
Well,
And
they say, I mean, the first thing you would have heard was your mother's heartbeat or your own, right?
yeah.
Like there's something probably very primordial
Mhm.
about the drum beat.
Yeah, as soon as I hear it, I'm like, wow, okay, I'm listening, and it's kind of soothing. I'm listening. But yes, I've seen a shaman, and I'm gonna see him this month, which is so exciting. He used drumming and a rattle.
Huh.
I'm terrified of snakes, and that's all I could think about. Maybe that was a fear or something I had to face, just with the sound of it. But it
Uh-huh.
was healing at the same time. It was very cool.
It's interesting if you think of the snake as as a shadow, that would be kind of a good example.
Mm.
The snake is one of the oldest archetypes. I don't know if you know that. But
Mm,
there were, before all of those patriarchal religions kind of developed, because if you again, I write a lot about comparative mythology and
mm,
religions and stuff. There were snake worshiping cults, and the snake, that's why the snake is now associated with healing. The snake is associated in yoga with Kundalini energy.
yeah.
So the if you were to say, okay, you have a fear of snakes,
Oh, I do.
and okay, no, I know, and I'm
Yeah.
working with you like
Yeah.
I'm taking you down the path of shadow work. I
Yeah.
would say,
Yeah.
what there's something very raw and
Mm,
transformative available to you
yeah.
that you're pushing away by giving it the face of the snake to say the snake is bad, keep the snake away. But I'm
Mm,
telling you, the snake is powerful. The snake is like there's something healing, there's something organically empowering available to you. I don't know if you're into yoga and all that, if
mhm.
you've ever done Kundalini work,
I
but
have, yeah.
yeah, maybe approach it differently than
Mm.
your idea of the snake and the snake's going to bite me. Were you ever bitten by a snake?
In my dreams, I've been tortured for years with
Uh-huh.
snakes. Sometimes they were crawling all over me. I wake up, I have to
Hmm.
stand and see if there's anything on me. And I was giving birth to snakes.
Hmm.
It like for a whole year or two. Snakes.
Well, number one, snakes and reptiles a lot of times are associated with sexuality.
Mm.
So there could be things, no, they're just, so I'm just
Yeah.
offering it up to you for breakfast. Like here's some food for thought. Like
Yeah.
the
Yeah.
snake is talking to you, but it's showing up in your dreams or
Mm.
you're giving birth to it. It's like what if I was to tell you the snake was like gonna give you something really good if you were to listen to it? Like
Yeah.
that, I know it's like hard for somebody who has a fear of heights. You don't just go push them off the building to show 'em, oh darn, I thought it wouldn't hurt. No, but this is the same kind of idea.
Yeah, yeah. Because I talked to a friend and she said it's a transformation, shedding, letting go.
Hmm.
But yes, I do agree with what you mentioned, sexuality and the snakes, because being sexually abused or taken advantage of, it does damage a person.
Well, that's
I
why
don't care
that's
how
where,
old they are. It does damage them. It's something I've
yeah.
always feared, and I never go to. So I keep getting dreams and dreams and dreams until I'm like, okay, that's it. So I started
But
doing artworks and I haven't had any dreams of them.
Bernadette,
Mhm,
you couldn't be doing the work today that you do if you had not had all the experiences that you had. So, of course, the last thing we would ever, think is that any child should ever have to face something like that. But there's a lot to, it doesn't matter what the ballast was, what the difficulty we had to, weather the storm, whatever it was, it has shaped us into the deep compassion and healing and so I think like with the snake, um, one other thing when I said that it has to do with sexuality,
mhm,
there's nobody really understands the brain. There's just all these ideas, but we talk about the reptilian, the mammalian, the neocortex, the different parts of the brain. The areas that are about survival, fight or flight response, sexuality,
mhm,
that's why sexuality for kids in their 20s is so overwhelming. It's
mhm.
so beyond logic and so that drive of that's why the reptiles in dreams a lot of times seem to, relate to sexuality.
Oh, okay. That's really cool. Speaking of reptile, I find out that I'm a reptilian. I don't know if you have done any type of starseed stuff.
Mm-mm.
Yeah, yeah, it's fascinating. Yeah, it's weird. I know there were snake people at some point, but I don't think I was friends with them.
Oh, I'm not sure what that is. I'm not sure about all that. So I don't
Yeah.
really have any, but I mean, you didn't have to tell me that you're reptilian. I can tell you're dancing with the shadow. That's a
Yeah,
snake,
yeah,
you know?
yeah, it's interesting. Yeah, yeah. What are oracles?
What are oracles?
Yeah, what is
Okay.
that?
Okay.
Sorry.
So, the idea of an oracle goes back to like Greek times, where there would be the oracle at Delphi, and there would be a priestess that would, I don't know if it was gases that were coming out of the ground or something they were drinking, whatever it was, people would travel a long way to be
Mhm,
told what the future holds for them. And so the idea of oracles
mhm,
are, it can be like a deck of the tarot cards, the I Ching in China. It can be runes that come from the Nordic culture.
mhm,
Uh, and it's kind of, there's a lot of people that use like different decks. I mean, there's a million, just like you were mentioning star seeds or whatever, like
yeah.
there's a million ways, and there's a million disciplines that people use to kind of organize some sense of like their life, and whatever resonates for them, works. And so, I think I mentioned I put the oracles on my site because
Yeah.
when if somebody wants to type in their dream, there's a it'll give them the list of interpretations from
Mhm,
what it saw in their dream. And a lot of times they wouldn't think to look up these words because they didn't think that there could be a meaning there.
mhm,
But when people don't remember their dreams, then they can go to the oracle. And the reason, like, you have to think that if the psyche wants to understand itself, right? Like there we can think of like the enlightened person or the individuated highest expression of who we might be, and us today. Like there's always distance to go,
mhm,
and so oracles can be a great way to explore possibilities. The fact that something shows up for us, whether it's synchronicity or our own mind wants to have the conversation through that archetype in what we're looking at in an oracle,
mhm.
it's the same thing that's happening when we dream. So there's a sense that there's more to us, there's more information available, and it starts to have meaning for us when our mind, starts to interact with it. Does that make sense? I don't know
Yeah,
if that sounds too
it
weird.
does. Yeah,
So
it
it's kind
does.
of like somebody might look at oracles and think, oh, that's bad. It's the devil. It's like evil, witchcraft. That's not what it's about. It's about people exploring potentials that
Yeah.
might, if you did, let's say, a tarot reading,
Mhm,
um, and you got like the tower, which would be an archetype that's capturing, wow, there's
mhm,
some big revolution going on for you, and you're not aware of it. Now
mhm.
you put that in somebody's mind, and it's like they start to see that they're doing something that's constantly leading to conflict, and then they overcome it. Well, there's the revolution. Does that make sense? So it's like kind
Yeah.
of like it gives them, because it's presented to them, it makes them step back and consider that maybe they're not seeing the whole picture.
Yeah, yeah, it does. Yeah, I think sometimes we evilize things we don't understand.
Hmm.
Having fear of the unknown, and it's okay to be afraid, but we all are unique and different, and it's good to do what works for us, I suppose.
And that's kind of like pretty profound too, the
Mhm.
idea that we're afraid of the unknown. I mean, that's really it. That's why we have so much pain and suffering that
Yeah, yeah,
that
yeah,
we don't
yeah,
what we don't understand, we, denigrate or
yeah, yeah. I wanted to dive in with the title of one of the title of your book about
Mhm.
ancient astrology. Is that the title of it, or what it's about?
decoding the night sky,
Ooh, that's pretty. Wow.
because that's what they were doing. These are the Babylonians. So this like goes, the Babylonians were before the Greeks. Like the Greeks basically made a painting out of their it's a completely different culture.
Mhm,
And if you look at like cuneiform, like it even looks like stars, like the symbols, so
mhm,
that book is basically looking at the roots of astrology. Like, for example, Libra in Western astrology, coming from the Greeks and all of their myths, would is totally different from the Babylonian ravenous dogs. Because and all like each the origin of the archetype that became our 12 constellations, they have completely different histories, but it helps you understand them a little bit more. So that's what that book is about. It's like
Mhm.
they and there's some other really, again, when I'm writing a book, I don't know where it's going to go. I don't, it can't, that book came to me, inundated me. It was like the most amazing journey. But what I got most out of that book was that, some of the myths and stories that we that we have in all these different cultures, like the flood and the
Mhm.
Jonah, even Jonah being swallowed by a whale, and these were up in the stars, and they were originally captured in the way that they understood the last part of the zodiac
Mm,
from Aquarius to Pisces is the sea and the Pisces fish and the whale and all these stories that were coming to them then get transcribed through all these different cultures through to the Latin and wherever, and
mhm.
they get like a completely different description of what it was. You know what I mean?
Yeah, yeah.
But you have to remember that in those times they didn't have media and television and
Mhm.
you know and
Mhm.
and this the like for example the planet Venus is in the Mayan, the Maya people, anybody who had pyramids were watching the stars, and they
Mhm.
generally had some kind of irrigation culture, so they needed to know like how the seasons were going to behave, and so those were ancient observatories, and so they were watching Venus, and there's a period of time where Venus slips below the Earth, meaning that sometimes we see, in fact, I think it might be out right now in the sky, which we'll see it really early in the morning before the sun, or it will be left in the western sky when the sun sets. And so it was always called the impostor of the sun. And the name of Venus in the old Hebrew text was Lucifer. And that's where that whole story archetype of that fallen star or whatever. In the Mayan culture, it was Kukulkan, the snake, the feathered serpent that would go under the earth. Or it could be Persephone, the way she got, abducted by Hades and brought into the underworld in the Greek culture. So it's kind of like that behavior of those planets and what the stars and all that, that it was such a big part of our psyche,
Mhm.
back then. And
Mhm.
then it's been kind of, translated into these different iterations of
Mhm.
a very natural phenomena. The reason Venus disappears is because of the way it's closer to the sun,
Mhm.
than we are. So
Mhm.
there's a period of time where we won't see it.
Yeah, that's really cool. I think all of us are using astrology nowadays. I
Hmm.
follow a few people who does astrology. I'm curious to learn, so I've been learning and reading about it. I'm a Pisces. When
Oh,
I read the what it means, I'm like, oh, that's me.
hmm.
Yeah,
Right.
it makes perfect sense.
Yeah,
Mhm.
Pisces is like there's a duality to Pisces because of the two fishes, and Pisces straddle. That's another interesting thing that came out of that book, Decoding the Night Sky.
Mhm.
There when you think of Pisces, you generally see like that sign that has like the two like parentheses going in opposite directions with a line across it.
Mhm.
And that's the fish cord, because up in the sky, one fish is there's like the celestial equator. One is on one side and one is in the other. And that's why a lot of times Pisces are described as having one foot here on the planet
Yeah.
and one foot somewhere else, right? Like, but what's so
Just describe
fascinating,
me.
what's fascinating is there's a place in India called Ratnagiri
Mm,
that has the Pisces glyph from 10,000 BC, and it has the fish cord. It has that little line through it.
mhm,
And there are drawings in Ratnagiri,
mhm,
which is in Turkey, that trace back around to the same period of time, that has the scorpion and has like some of the symbols that would be associated with astrology. So
mhm.
when we think of like astrology coming from the Greeks, that would have been about what, 500 BC or what, around, and it's so much older,
Oh, yeah.
which is like, I believe that we were accessing a lot of inspiration that has become our stories and our astrologies and our, archetypes, the things we were accessing that more freely
Mhm.
before consciousness got so hardcore. We got to have all these words and you got to do all these things right. And,
Yeah.
that there was a time where we were more free flowing, right brain. And,
Mm. Yeah, yeah. I'm getting a sense of feeling that we may have used the sky as a map to get places.
of course, that's how they would sail across different parts of the ocean. Yeah.
Yeah, that's so cool.
Yeah.
Let's talk about Taoism. Is that how I
Mhm.
say it?
Well, it can be Tao or Tao, like people
Tao,
pronounce
Tao.
it either way. Um,
Okay. Okay, what is it?
Tao, Tao.
Yeah.
So if you think of like around well, we're not really sure when it started, and it would have preceded like Confucianism in China, but it was like an ancient philosophy that traces back to ancient China.
Hmm.
Um, around the time that the Greeks had Socrates and Plato and all that, where the Western world was like looking at, oh, well, let's describe the divinities or the magical world or whatever you want to call it. Let's describe it in human terms. Oh, well, there's Hera and there's, Zeus or whatever. In ancient China, they were saying water does this. What can the behavior of water teach us about how
Hmm.
humans can be human, or what does a tree teach us about being human? Or so Taoism was a philosophy that was the practice of like learning how nature can inspire the human journey. And Taoism mixed with Hinduism to become Buddhism. So
Hmm.
like there's a lot to Buddhism that can trace to the Taoism ideas, like the middle way, which in Taoism, I always say that it's a philosophy of removing boundaries,
Hmm.
removing the sense of extremes. Get rid of the judgment. Like, oh, it's so good, it's so good. Oh no, no, it's so bad, it's so bad. It's like just get in the middle. And so you see in Buddhism, they have the middle way, or and then there's a lot to Buddhism that's obviously, from Hindu ideas and
Hmm.
but that there's I think the best philosopher of Taoism is Wang Tzu.
Yeah.
So he was like, it's not, they talk about Lao Tzu, the supposed writer of the Tao Te Ching. I believe the Tao Te Ching, because I did a translation of it actually. It's a conglomeration of a lot of different thinkers, like, because you can even see as you go through the chapters, there's a different iteration for the same idea.
Hmm.
So, Wang Tzu says, identify with the infinite and wander in the unfathomable. To
Hmm.
me, that boils down everything that Taoism is in that one statement. Because if it's a philosophy of removing boundaries, it means that you are not different from me, right? That's the compassion piece. Like we're in this together. And I am no different than that little spider over there. He's creating a little world so he can eat, just because I want to smash him or crush him or, you know what I mean? Like, so it's really like a beautiful, no boundary interaction with life, and that's what identify with the infinite and be, like I was saying in the beginning, be the guest and not the host. Let go. And
Yeah.
these ideas, have got a place in a lot of different, ways of thought, philosophies around the world. But I specifically like Taoism because of its nature,
Mm.
base, foundation,
Yeah.
and then wandering the unfathomable. How perfect is that? Because I think I told you, well, because I was working with dreams, I studied archetypes, I studied mythology. I've kind of like gone all around the world trying to find that thing that would explain it all. And you kind of come to the place where nobody knows anything, like that's something that you find out later. There is no truth. There's just, ideas, and so wandering in the unfathomable
Hmm.
allows a place for joy to exist
Yeah.
because we're in a mindset of discovery
Mhm.
and believing in magic, right? Believing in what's that word? Romancing the numinous. The
Yeah.
numinous is like the unexpected. You can call it like you know, a spiritual experience. It can be something that you feel through art. It can
Yeah.
be something you feel when you fall in love with another human being, or
Mm.
the something that when I was saying before, the shadow, all that's not me, those things that we project as the enemy. At the same time, all that's not me is so amazing. Like, and the more that I can relate to
Mhm,
being a part of all that's not me and seeing how amazing it is, the
mhm.
more amazing I am. You know what I mean? So it's like, so I love that saying of his, identify with the infinite and wander in the unfathomable. That's all you need to know.
Yeah,
Like,
yeah.
that's Taoism.
That's so beautiful. That's so cool.
Yeah.
Yeah, I've always had a deep connection with nature. Like I would be talking and touching the tree. I may seem nuts to some people. I'm like, no, I'm connected to the tree and the birds. Just nature. It's so beautiful.
It
Uh,
is.
yeah, let's talk a little bit about yoga and meditation. I know in parts of the world that they tie it to a religion, which is not accurate at all. Let's
Mhm.
say someone's into yoga and meditation, they want to go further in their journey. What are some advice you'd have for them?
Well, yoga is a type of meditation, right? Like
Mhm,
it's a way of, and it's tied more, I think to Hinduism or
mhm,
because it was really, it kind of originated there.
mhm,
Um, but the yoga is like putting the body in submission so that I might have a shift. That's why the Kundalini thing, like there's things that people do breath work
mhm,
or do different things to like release the chakra centers. And
mhm.
I'm not a yoga teacher in any way, and I won't profess to be one. But I say I definitely, I do yoga at the same time I do Tai Chi. I'm a hiker. I climb mountains. Like just have a little bit of it all. I think there's
Mhm,
a lot of benefit to yoga. What I like most about it is the pain that we experience, the I can't go there-ness that we have to confront, and the idea that you can breathe into it and it releases. What's that all about? Like there's so much to explore in
Yeah.
yoga when we kind of take that up as something that we want to grow through. And meditation is an interesting one because mm, you know, I I see meditation as calming the mind, getting centered, right?
Mhm,
But the idea that we have to like do something a certain way so many times over and over, 17 times plus two, but only do it a half, or it gets so convoluted, that that's the path to enlightenment. I don't think so. I really think that there's ideas about meditation that actually take us away from, what about walking meditation? What about going to Target and go shopping and having a meditative like experience by being observant and, seeing how something pushes our buttons or, like so I think, and I don't know, for some reason my mind wants to talk about lucid dreams because that's kind of how I see meditation. People will ask me a lot about lucid dreams.
mhm,
And lucid dreaming is when we wake up in our dream and are able to control everything.
mhm,
And, I appreciate dreams because they know more than the dreamer knows about themselves, because they're in a condition of sleep that allows them to explore. To take, to take the ego and mind into the dreamscape isn't my idea of enlightenment. Right. So, so lucid dreams, I think, yeah, I'm sure there's some benefits. I know people dream of flying when they've had some sort of achievement breakthrough in their daily life, flying or airports and all that tend to
mhm.
be associated with ambition and what we're trying to achieve, trying to get somewhere. But, so I don't know if that answers your
It
question.
does. Yeah, it does. Yeah. I've
Wait, can you tell I'm a Gemini? Blah, 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 blah.
yeah, I've had dreams of falling.
Mhm.
Um, I don't like it.
Well, okay, let me ask you this. Are you talking about the sensation of falling as you're drifting off to sleep, or that you literally can see around you and you're falling? Like, which is it? Because one, they're different.
Okay, so I'm unconscious.
Uh-huh.
I've already slept. I just actual dreaming and I'm
Mhm.
falling. And I wake up, I can feel the sensation of me falling.
Okay. So there's a lot of things that go on because when we're going to go into the dream state, the body has a paralytic feature that shuts us down so that we don't act out on our dreams. And sometimes we can wake up before that lets go of us. And that's where people have then those really scary dreams where they can't move and some, and then all of a sudden they're in this really suggestible state because that's where you are when you're dreaming. And so anything you think, you're like a monster sitting on my chest and pushing, but that's all just part of these
Yeah.
different physiological processes. And in the same way, as you're falling asleep, you
Mhm.
can wake up or somehow part of your mind didn't quite go to sleep and has this, a different sensation when the beta wave became a theta wave or, whatever it is that goes on. So if you have the sensation of falling, there's a lot of physiological processes that, are occurring. But if you dream of falling, that's a different thing. And that's a whole like conversation about death and, all those things, because death in a dream is transformation. And it's very common where people would be dreaming of something like being killed, but they don't actually die, or falling, but they don't actually hit, or they're not actually hurt. You know, Death in a dream is always about rebirth.
Wow. Well, that explains a lot. Because I'm always
And
being
because you're the
hunted.
snake, you're the
Yeah,
snake.
yeah, I'm always being hunted by giant stuff, bears, monsters, creatures. What do they want to do to me? Kill me. Always,
Right.
always.
Well, I did a whole episode one time about the dreams of the 20 something crowd
Mhm.
because they that that when all the people in the dream are us, all the bears in the dream are us, the snake in the dream is us, so it's like it's all us. And when we're in our 20s, we're being forced to adopt behaviors through new jobs, or we're out of college, that aren't jiving with who we thought we were the whole time we were brought up with our family environment or whatever. And so they're these new characters, like somebody forced us to reprimand a subordinate and we're not comfortable with that, they'll chase us around in our dream, that part of us. So it's kind of like you people will dream of wild animals when some part of their emotional nature gets out of the box during the day and surprises them, and so they'll dream about that, as what's that? Like so again, these nightmares or bad dreams or whatever are not bad. They're just processing these
Mhm,
if you like a bear
mhm,
is kind of there's something maternal about a bear, and there's also like with elephants, like these different animals will have
mhm.
different meanings, just like a whale. They're all mammals.
Yeah,
The bear, though, is going to be different from a tiger, right? Like, so you kind
yeah.
of have to look at the animal, and
Mm,
but the idea is that there was some sort of like unbridled response, because a
mm,
bear, just like his behavior is uncontrollable, and it is something that we're afraid of, but there's also something very nurturing and mothery about it.
mm,
So either you're looking at motherhood or you're looking at your mother, or I think there's something with the bear that might relate to mother.
yeah, yeah. It wasn't a fluffy, nice bear.
It doesn't matter. Mom's not always fluffy and nice.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it's kind of like you have to, you know
Yeah, yeah, that makes sense. Yeah, yeah. Well, Carrie, where can my listeners find you if they'd like to work with you and see what you're up to?
So you can find me at Cafe au Sol. So it's
Mm,
CafeAuSoul,
mhm,
Cafe au Sol. And I have like links to my YouTube channel, which is Nature's a Guru.
mhm,
Or there's like tons of different places to kind of wander and explore, oracles, interpret your dreams. And you can always get in contact with me if you want to do any kind of one-on-one work.
That's awesome. Last question before I let you go. I try to ask every guest at least. What is the meaning of life for you?
Wonder,
Mm,
wonder. Like the fact that it's unknowable
mhm,
is gives me a lot of meaning because
mm,
it allows me to discover something new every day.
mhm,
So I think it's kind of wonder, really being like staying at the threshold of perception without jumping and out of it,
mm.
just being a witness.
Yeah, that's so cool. Thank you so much, Carrie, for your time.
Thank you, Bernadette. It's very nice to get to know you, and I hope you and the snake come to an agreement.
Eventually, we will.
You will, and it will empower you, that I know.
Yeah, yeah, we will. Thank you so much. I appreciate you and everything you do.
Thank you.
You're welcome.